The snow was falling hard that night, making everything outside look like a white blanket. David was sitting in his small cabin, working on his computer when he heard it. 3 loud knocks on his front door. He looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. Who could be outside at this time, especially in this terrible weather? He walked to the door carefully, wondering if maybe it was just the wind or a tree branch hitting his door. But then he heard it again, knock, knock, knock. This time it sounded weak, like someone was barely able to lift their hand. David opened the door and couldn't believe what he saw. A young woman stood there, shaking badly from the cold. Her skin looked almost blue, and her hair was silver white. Covered with snow, she was wearing only a thin, strange-looking dress that seemed to shine in the moonlight. Her eyes were the most unusual thing. They looked like they had tiny stars in them. "Please," she whispered in a voice that sounded musical, but tired. "Help me." David didn't think twice. Quickly brought her inside, closing the door against the freezing wind. The woman almost fell down as soon as she stepped inside. Her whole body was shaking, and her lips looked purple from the cold. "Oh my goodness, you must be freezing," David said, rushing to get some warm blankets from his bedroom. "What were you doing outside in this storm? Where's your car?" The woman tried to speak, but her words came out mixed up. Some words sounded like English, but others sounded completely different, like no language David had ever heard. She pointed outside and said something that sounded like sky and broken. David wrapped the blankets around her and helped her sit on his couch near the fireplace. He quickly made some hot tea and brought it to her. When she took the cup, he noticed her hands were ice cold, colder than anything he had ever felt. It was like touching ice cubes. "What's your name?" he asked gently, sitting across from her. "Zara," she said slowly, like she was trying to remember how to speak English. "I am ... Zara." "Okay, Zara, I'm David. You're safe now, but we need to get you warmed up. You look like you have hypothermia." Zara nodded, but David noticed something strange. Even though she was clearly cold and shaking when she breathed out, he could see her breath like it was still freezing outside. The air around her seemed colder than the rest of the room. As she drank the tea, David noticed more unusual things about her. Her skin had a slight blue tint that didn't seem to be just from the cold. Her hair was completely white, not like an old person's hair, but pure silver white like moonlight. And her eyes, they really did seem to have light in them, like they were glowing softly. "Zara, where did you come from?" "Oh. Do you live nearby? Should I call someone for you?" David asked. She looked at him with those strange eyes and shook her head. "No call. No one knows I am here." Her English was getting better as she warmed up. "I was ... traveling. My ... vehicle ... broke." "Your car broke down? In this storm? Where is it? Should call for help." Zara looked confused and pointed up at the ceiling. "Not car. From ... up there." David thought maybe she was confused from being so cold. People with hypothermia sometimes don't think clearly. "Okay, don't worry about it now. Let's just get you warmed up first." He went to his bedroom and found some of his warmest clothes, a thick sweater and sweatpants. When he came back, Zara was looking around his living room with wonder, like she had never seen a normal house before. "Right." She was staring at the electric lights like they were magic. "Here, put these on. They'll be too big for you, but they're warm," David said. Handing her the clothes, Zara took the clothes and looked at them strangely, like she wasn't sure how to put them on. David realized she might need privacy, so he went to the kitchen too. "Make some soup." While he was cooking, he heard Zara moving around in the living room. When he came back with the soup, she was wearing his clothes, but something was wrong. She had put the sweater on backwards, and she was trying to figure out how the sweatpants worked. "Here, let me help," David said, with a kind smile. Showed her how to put the clothes on properly. Her skin was still incredibly cold to touch. And he noticed that even though she had been inside for almost an hour, she didn't seem to be warming up like a normal person would. "Zara, I think we should take you to a hospital. Your body temperature is really low, and that can be dangerous." "No," she said quickly, grabbing his arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "No hospital, please. They will not understand." David looked into her unusual eyes and saw real fear there. Okay, no hospital. But you need to tell me what's really going on. Where did you really come from?" And don't say your car broke down because I can tell that's not the truth. Zara was quiet for a long time, drinking the soup slowly. Finally, she looked up at him. You will think I am crazy. Try me. After tonight, I think I can handle crazy. She pointed up at the ceiling again, then looked directly at him. I come from very far away. Not from this place. Not from this ... world. David stared at her, not sure if he heard her correctly. What do you mean, not from this world? I mean, Zara said carefully, I am not like you. I am not ... human. ... Words hung in the air between them. David looked at her strange appearance, the blue-tinted skin, the silver hair, the glowing eyes, the impossibly cold skin temperature. A part of him wanted to laugh and tell her she was being silly. But another part of him, looking at all these impossible things about her, started to wonder if maybe she was telling the truth. That's not possible, he said quietly. Zara held out her hand toward him. As he watched, the air around her hand started to get visibly colder. He could see his breath suddenly, even though they were sitting right next to the warm fireplace. The temperature in the room dropped so fast that David shivered. This is what I can do, she said simply. This is why I am different. David's mind was racing. This couldn't be real. People couldn't control temperature like that. But he had just seen it with his own eyes, and he could feel the cold air around her. How is that possible? He whispered. On my world, it is always cold. Much colder than here, my people. We are made for the cold. We need it to live. She looked sad. But my ship, ... it broke. I crashed in the mountains. I had been walking for many days looking for help. David sat back in his chair trying to process what he was hearing. Either this woman was having some kind of mental breakdown, or she was actually telling him she was from another planet. Both options seemed impossible. I know you do not believe me, Zara said softly. I know it sounds crazy, but I am telling you the truth. I am not from Earth. She started to stand up, pulling the blankets tighter around herself. I should go. I should not have come here. It is dangerous for you to know about me. No, wait, David said quickly. Don't. Go back out there. You'll freeze to death, no matter who or what you are. Zara looked at him with surprise. You are not afraid of me. David thought about it for a moment. I should probably be terrified, but you know what? You knocked on my door asking for help. You're cold, hungry, and scared. Whatever you need help, and I'm not going to turn you away. For the first time since she arrived, Zara smiled. It was a beautiful smile that made her whole face light up. Literally, her glowing eyes seemed to get brighter. Thank you, she said quietly. I have never met someone so kind. David stood up and arranged the couch cushions into a makeshift bed. You can sleep here tonight. Tomorrow, when this storm passes, we'll figure out what to do next. As Zara settled down on the couch, David noticed that even though she was clearly exhausted, her breathing still made little clouds in the air. The temperature around her never seemed to get completely warm. He went to his bedroom, but he couldn't sleep. His mind kept going over everything that had happened. Was he losing his mind? Had he just agreed to help an alien? It all seemed impossible, but he couldn't deny what he had seen and felt. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside his small cabin, David realized his quiet, ordinary life had just changed forever. When David woke up the next morning, he almost thought the whole thing had been a dream. But then he walked into his living room and saw Zara sitting on his couch, staring out the window at the snow-covered trees. She was still wearing his oversized clothes, and the air around her was noticeably cooler than the rest of the room. Good morning, he said carefully, still not completely sure this was all real. Zara turned to him and smiled. In the daylight, her unusual features were even more obvious. Her skin had that same blue tint, and her silver hair seemed to shimmer like metal. Good morning, David. Thank you for letting me stay. Her English was much better today, like she had been practicing all night. David made coffee for himself and hot chocolate for Zara, noticing that she seemed to prefer the warm drinks, even though they didn't seem to change her body temperature. So, David said, sitting across from her, yesterday you told me you're from another planet. I've been thinking about it all night, and I still don't know what to believe. Zara nodded. I understand. It's hard to believe. On my world, we have stories about other planets with life, but most of my people think they are just stories. What's your planet like? David asked, genuinely curious now. Zara's eyes lit up as she started talking. It is beautiful, but very different from here. Everything is covered in ice and snow, like your winter, but all the time. The sky is always filled with colors, what you call northern lights, but much brighter. Our cities are built inside ice caves and crystal formations. She held out her hand, and David watched in amazement as frost patterns started forming on her palm. Creating intricate designs like tiny snowflakes, we can shape ice with our minds, create buildings and art from frozen water. The cold is not our enemy, it is our friend. That's incredible, David said, watching the frost patterns dance across her skin. But how did you end up here? Zara's expression became sad. I was part of a small group sent to explore other worlds. We are scientists, looking for new places, where our people might be able to live someday. Our planet is getting warmer, and it is becoming harder for us to survive there. Wait, David said. Your planet is getting warmer, and that's bad for you. Yes, just like your people worry about your world getting warmer, we worry about ours getting too warm for us. We need the cold to live. She showed him her wrist, where strange symbols appeared and disappeared on her skin like living tattoos. These marks show my emotions and health. When I am calm, they are blue. When I am worried or scared, they turn white. David watched the symbols shift from blue to white as she talked about her crashed ship. My vehicle hit something in your atmosphere. Maybe one of those metal objects that fly around your planet? I lost control and crashed in the mountains. I have been walking for 5 days, getting weaker because your world is too warm for me. But you seem so cold to me, David said. What is cold to you is warm to me. The temperature that feels normal. 2, you would be like standing in fire for my people. She touched the couch cushion, and David could see frost forming where her fingers touched. This is why I need to stay cool, even though it might seem strange to you. Over the next few days, David learned more about Zara and her world. She told him about her job as a planetary researcher, studying weather patterns and looking for habitable places. She was fascinated by everything in his house, the television, the microwave, even simple things like light switches. Your technology is so different from ours, she said, watching him use his laptop. We use crystal-based systems that work with ice and cold temperatures. Your electronic devices would never work on our world. David showed her how to use the remote control, and she spent an hour just changing channels, amazed by all the different shows and movies. When she saw a nature documentary about penguins, she got very excited. Those creatures are like us. They love the cold and live on ice. She watched the penguins sliding and playing, and for the first time since she arrived, she looked truly happy. David noticed that when Zara was happy, the cold air around her felt refreshing instead of uncomfortable. When she was sad or worried, it became biting and harsh. It was like her emotions changed the very air around her. Can all your people do that? He asked. Control temperature with their feelings? Yes, it is how we communicate sometimes. We can share feelings through temperature changes. When my mother was proud of me, the air would become gently cool. When my father was angry, it would become sharp and cutting. David realized he was starting to understand her temperature changes like a new language. When she was curious about something, the air would become crisp and clear. When she was grateful, it felt like a cool breeze on a hot day. As the days passed, they developed routines together. David worked on his computer while Zara watched television or looked through his books. She was especially interested in books about Earth's weather and climate. Her learning speed was incredible. She went from broken English to speaking almost perfectly in just a few days. Your planet has such interesting weather patterns, she said, reading a book about hurricanes. On my world, the weather never changes. It is always cold, always snowy. Here, you have rain and sunshine and windstorms. It must be exciting to never know what each day will bring. David laughed. Most people complain about the weather changing so much. But change is beautiful, Zara said. On my world, everything. It's always the same. It's the same cold, the same snow, the same ice formations. Here, every day is different. One evening, while they were eating dinner together, Zara suddenly became very quiet. The temperature in the room dropped sharply, and her skin markings turned bright white. "What's wrong?" David asked, concerned. "I can feel them," she whispered. "My people. They are looking for me." David looked out the window, but didn't see anything unusual. "How can you tell?" "We have a connection, especially when we are from the same research group. I can sense when they are nearby, searching." The white markings on her skin were pulsing now like a heartbeat. "They are still far away, but they are coming. Isn't that good news?" 8. "They can take you home, back to where you belong." At him, with those glowing eyes, and David could see conflict there. I am not sure I want to go back." "What do you mean?" "On my world, I was just another researcher. I did my job, studied weather patterns, lived a quiet life. But here with you," she paused, looking down at her hands, "here I feel like I matter. Like I am more than just my job." David felt something strange in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. Over the past week, he had grown to care about this mysterious woman who had appeared at his door. She was kind, curious, and despite being from another world, she seemed to understand him better than most humans he knew. "You do matter," he said quietly. "You've changed my life completely. Before you came, I was just alone in this cabin, working and sleeping and not really living. Now, every day is an adventure." Zara's skin markings shifted from white to a soft purple color David had never seen before. "What does purple mean?" he asked. She smiled shyly. "It means affection, deep caring for someone." The air in the room became perfectly comfortable. Not too warm or too cold, but just right. David realized that this was what perfect temperature felt like when Zara was truly happy and content. But outside, unknown to both of them, strange lights were beginning to appear in the distant sky, moving in patterns that no human aircraft could make. The search was getting closer. And soon, they would have to make choices that would change both of their lives forever. For now, though, they sat together in David's small cabin. Two beings from different worlds who had found something special. In each other's company, the future was uncertain, but the present moment felt perfect, even if it couldn't last forever. 3 weeks had passed since Zara first knocked on David's door, and life in the small cabin had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Every morning, David would wake up to find Zara already awake, usually sitting by the window watching the sunrise. She told him that on her planet they rarely saw the sun, so Earth's bright mornings fascinated her. "The colors are so warm," she would say, pointing at the orange and pink sky. "On my world, everything is blue and white and silver. I never knew there could be so many warm colors in the sky." David had learned to read Zara's temperature changes like a language. When she was excited about something new, the air around her would become crisp and energizing. When she was thinking deeply, it would turn cool and calm. And when she was happy, really, truly happy, the temperature would become perfectly comfortable. Like the most perfect spring day, their daily routine had become natural and easy. David would work on his computer projects while Zara helped in ways that amazed him. Her understanding of patterns and systems was incredible. She could spot problems in his code that would have taken him hours to find. "Your digital systems are fascinating," she said one day, looking over his shoulder at his screen. "They're so different from our crystal technology, but they follow similar logical patterns." "You're better at this than I am," David laughed, watching her point out an error he'd been struggling with all morning. "Maybe I should hire you as my programming partner." Zara's skin markings turned that soft purple color that meant affection. "I would like that. On my world, I only worked alone. Here, working together feels ... better." But it wasn't just work where they had become a team. Zara had taken over cooking duties, and her meals were surprisingly delicious. She used spices in ways David had never thought of, creating dishes that were both familiar and completely new. "How do you know how to cook human food?" he asked one evening, enjoying a meal that tasted like nothing he'd ever had before. I watch your cooking shows on television, she said with a smile. But I also add techniques from my world. We preserve food differently because of the cold, so I know how to bring out flavors that heat usually destroys. David realized that Zara wasn't just adapting to his world, she was making it better. His small cabin felt more alive with her there. She had arranged his books in a way that made more sense, organized his kitchen so everything was easier to find, and even figured out how to make his old fireplace burn more efficiently. One evening, while they were sitting together reading, David noticed something different about Zara. Are you feeling okay? You seem warmer than usual. Zara looked down at her hands, where her skin markings were swirling in patterns he hadn't seen before. I think I am changing. What do you mean? My body temperature is getting warmer. Not warm like yours, but warmer than normal. For my people, and look. She held up her hand, and instead of creating frost, only a slight coolness came from her palm. My abilities are getting weaker. David felt worried. Is that dangerous? Are you getting sick? It's sickness, Zara said thoughtfully. I think it's adaptation. My body is slowly adjusting to your world's temperature. It's never happened before, but then again, none of my people have ever stayed on a warm planet this long. Is that bad? Zara was quiet for a moment. I don't know. It means I'm becoming more like you, but less like my own people. If this continues, I might not be able to survive on my home world anymore. The thought scared David more than he wanted to admit. Not just because it might mean Zara was in danger, but because he had grown so used to having her there. The idea of her leaving felt impossible now. 2 days later, David woke up feeling terrible. His head was pounding, his throat was sore, and he had a high fever. He tried to get up to make coffee, but he felt so dizzy, he had to sit back down on his bed. Zara appeared in his doorway, immediately sensing something was wrong. The temperature in the room had become uncomfortably warm because of his fever. David, you're sick, she said, rushing to his side. It's just a cold, I think, he said. Weakly, I'll be fine in a day or two. But as the day went on, David got worse. His fever climbed higher, and he started shivering even though he felt burning hot. Zara stayed by his side, and David noticed something amazing happening. Whenever his fever got too high, Zara would place her hands on his forehead, and the coolness from her skin would bring his temperature down. When he was shivering, she would adjust the coolness to just the right level to make him comfortable. This is incredible, David said during a moment when he felt a bit better. You're like a natural air conditioner. Ack! On my world, we use our temperature control to help heal each other, Zara explained. High fevers can be dangerous for your people. Let me help regulate your body temperature. For 3 days, Zara barely left David's side. She brought him food, made sure he drank enough water, and used her abilities to keep his fever from getting dangerous. David had never experienced care like this before. She seemed to know exactly what temperature he needed at every moment. Why are you doing all this? He asked on the 3rd day, when he was finally starting to feel better. Zara looked at him with those glowing eyes. Because you took care of me when I needed help. Because you didn't turn me away when I was strange and different. Because... She paused, her skin markings turning that deep purple color. Because I care about you more than I ever thought possible. David felt something warm spread through his chest that had nothing to do with fever. Zara, I care about you too. More than I should, probably. Why more than you should? Because you're from another world. Because this can't last forever. Because eventually your people will find you and you'll have to go home. Zara moved closer to him and the air around them became perfectly comfortable. What if I don't want to go home? You have to? Your people, your family, your whole life is there. My family thinks I'm dead by now. My mission was supposed to last only a few days. In my life there, she looked sad. My life there was cold and empty. Not temperature cold, that was good. But emotionally cold, lonely. Here, with you, I feel alive for the first time. David reached out and took her hand. It was still cooler than human temperature, but it was warmer than it had been when she first arrived. You're changing, aren't you? Not just your temperature, but everything. Yes, she admitted. Being here, being happy, caring about someone, it's changing me in ways I never expected. I'm becoming something new, something between your people and mine. Is that scary? Terrifying, she said, with a small laugh. But also wonderful. Change means growth. Change means becoming who you're meant to be, instead of just who you were born to be. That night, as David finally slept peacefully without fever, Zara sat by the window looking at the stars. She could feel something in the distance, a familiar, the cold presence that made her skin markings flash white with worry. Her people were getting closer. She looked back at David, sleeping peacefully, and then at her own hands. They were definitely warmer than they had been when she arrived. She was changing, becoming something her people might not recognize or accept. But looking at David, thinking about the kindness and care he had shown her, she realized she didn't. Want to stop changing? For the first time in her life, she was becoming exactly who she wanted to be. The question was, would her people let her stay that way? Outside, if anyone had been looking, they would have seen strange lights moving across the sky, searching in patterns that no human aircraft could make. The search was getting closer, and soon decisions would have to be made that would change everything for both of them. The strange lights started appearing on a Tuesday night. David first noticed them while washing dishes. Seeing unusual flashes in the sky that moved too fast and in patterns too perfect to be airplanes. When he pointed them out to Zara, her face went pale and her skin markings immediately turned bright white. "They're here," she whispered, backing away from the window. The temperature in the room dropped so quickly that David's breath became visible. "Your people?" David asked, though he already knew the answer from her reaction. Zara nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. "The search team. They've been looking for weeks, getting closer each day." "I was hoping." She stopped and looked at him with sad eyes. "I was hoping they wouldn't find me." Over the next few days, the signs became impossible to ignore. David's radio would fill with static at exactly the same times each night. His cell phone would lose signal randomly, and his computer would freeze whenever he tried to use the internet. Even his old mechanical clock started running backwards for several minutes each day. "What are they doing?" David asked, watching. His laptop screen flickered with strange symbols that looked like the markings that appeared on Zara's skin. "They're scanning," Zara explained, "staying far from the windows now, looking for energy signatures that match my biology. Every person from my world has a unique pattern, like your fingerprints. They can track me using special equipment." "Can't you hide it somehow? Block the signal?" "For a little while, yes." Zara concentrated, and David watched as her skin markings became very faint, almost invisible. "But it takes a lot of energy, and I can't do it for long. Plus, the longer I stay hidden, the more suspicious they become." David noticed that hiding her signal was exhausting for Zara. After just a few hours of blocking their scans, she would collapse on the couch, breathing heavily. The air around her would become chaotic, shifting between hot and cold as her control slipped. "This is killing you," David said after watching her struggle for the third day. "Maybe you should just let them find you." "No," Zara said quickly, then softened her voice. "I'm not ready. Once they find me, everything changes. They'll want to take me back immediately. But that's your home, your people. Don't you want to see them again?" Zara was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the forest. "David, can I tell you something about my world that I haven't shared before?" "Of course. My people, we don't form personal connections the way you do. Work together, live in the same communities. But we don't have families like yours. We don't have ... love." David felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What do you mean?" "We mate for reproduction when needed, but we don't form lasting emotional bonds. What I feel for you, what you've shown me, this caring, this warmth, this wanting to be together just because it feels good, that doesn't exist in my culture. That sounds lonely, it is. I just never knew it was lonely until I experienced something different." Her markings shifted to that deep purple color. "If I go back, I'll have to pretend that these feelings don't exist. I'll have to act like my time here meant nothing." David moved closer to her, and as always, her presence made the air around them perfectly comfortable. "What do you want to do?" "I want to stay here with you, but I know that's not realistic. My people will never stop looking for me, and eventually they'll find me no matter how well I hide." That night, the search intensified. Bright lights swept across the forest around David's cabin, moving in geometric patterns. The lights were silent but clearly not natural. David watched from his darkened window as they methodically searched every square foot of the area. "They're getting systematic," Zara said, staying hidden in the back of the cabin. "Tomorrow, or the next day, they'll search this exact spot. What happens when they find you?" Zara's expression became frightened. "They'll scan me first, to make sure I'm healthy and unharmed. When they discover that my biology has changed, that I've adapted to your world's temperature," she shuddered, "they'll think I'm contaminated." "Contaminated how?" "My people believe that extended contact with other species can corrupt our purity. They'll see my physical changes as evidence that I've been compromised. They might try to reverse the changes, or ... double quotes. She didn't finish the sentence, or what. They might decide I'm too damaged to bring home." David felt anger rise in his chest. "You're not damaged. You're not contaminated. You're just different now. That's not a bad thing." "You don't understand," Zara said, her temperature control becoming erratic. "My people value conformity above everything. Being different is the worst thing you can be." The next morning brought up more bad news. David's neighbor, old Mr. Peterson, who lived 2 miles away, called to say his cattle were acting strange, huddling together and refusing to eat. Another neighbor reported that her chickens hadn't laid eggs in 3 days. "It's the scanning," Zara explained. "The energy they use affects animal behavior. It means they're very close now." That afternoon, Zara made a decision that surprised David. "I need to call them." "What? Why?" "Because if they find me while I'm hiding, they'll know I've been avoiding them on purpose. That will make them even more suspicious. But if I contact them first, I can control how they discover me." "What will you tell them?" Zara thought carefully. "I'll say my communication device was damaged in the crash, that I've been injured and confused, trying to find my way back to the ship. Make it sound like I've been alone this whole time, barely surviving." "And what about me? What about us?" This was the question David had been dreading. How could they explain their relationship? How could Zara go back to her people and pretend that the past month hadn't changed everything? "I'll have to hide it," Zara said quietly. "Hide my feelings. Hide how much I care about you. Hide how happy I've been here. That's not fair." Life isn't fair, David. If they discover that I've formed an attachment to a human, it won't just be bad for me. It could affect future relations. Between our species, my people might decide that humans are dangerous, that we shouldn't make contact with your world at all. David hadn't thought about the bigger picture. If Zara's people decided humans were a threat, what would that mean for Earth? Would they try to stop other alien visitors? Would they warn other species to stay away? "So what do we do?" David asked. "Say goodbye," Zara said, though her voice shook as she said it. "We pretend this month never happened. You go back to your normal life, and I go back to mine." "I can't do that," David said. "I can't pretend you never existed. You've changed everything for me. You have to try. For both our sakes." That evening, as the strange lights in the sky grew brighter and closer, David and Zara sat together on the couch one last time. The air around them was perfectly comfortable, a sign of how perfectly they fit together despite being from different worlds. "I want you to know," David said, "that meeting you has been the best thing that ever happened to me." "For me too," Zara replied, her markings glowing softly purple. "I never knew what happiness felt like until I found it here with you." "Maybe there's another way," David said desperately. "Maybe we can find a solution that lets you stay." Zara looked at him with those glowing eyes, and for a moment David saw hope there. "Maybe," she said quietly. "But it would be dangerous for both of us." Outside, the lights were getting brighter, and David knew their time was running out. Tomorrow, everything would change, and they would have to make choices that would affect not just their own lives, but potentially the future of 2 entire worlds. The morning came too soon. David woke up to find Zara standing by the window, her whole body tense as she stared at the sky. Her skin markings were flashing between white and blue so fast they looked like strobe lights. "They're here," she whispered without turning around. David joined her at the window and felt his heart stop. 3 objects hung silently in the sky above the forest, each one roughly the size of a school bus, but shaped like teardrops made of what looked like liquid silver. They moved without sound. floating effortlessly as they searched the area below. "Those are your people's ships?" David asked in amazement. "Search vessels," Zara confirmed. "They can scan every living thing for miles around. There's no hiding now." As they watched, one of the ships moved closer to the cabin. A beam of pale blue light shot down from its bottom, sweeping slowly across the ground like a giant flashlight. When the light touched trees, they swayed slightly, as if pushed by invisible wind. When it touched the cabin's roof, every electronic device inside started buzzing and crackling. "Zara," David said urgently, "you need to contact them now, before they scan us directly." Zara nodded and closed her eyes. Markings began glowing brighter than David had ever seen, pulsing in complex patterns. She was sending a message in her people's language. Using her own body like a radio transmitter, within minutes, the response came. The ships moved into a triangular formation directly above the cabin, and David felt a strange tingling sensation all over his skin, like standing too close to a powerful magnet. "They want to meet on neutral ground," Zara translated, her eyes still closed as she received the message. "The clearing by the old oak tree, in 1 hour?" David knew the place she meant, a small meadow about half a mile from his cabin, where a massive old oak tree stood alone. "What did you tell them? I survived the crash but was injured and confused? That my communication device was damaged, and I've been trying to repair it, that I'm ready to come home now." The last words came out like they hurt to say. David could see tears forming in Zara's unusual eyes. "You don't have to do this," David said desperately. "We could run, hide somewhere else. Where could we go that they wouldn't find us?" "David, these ships can search entire continents. There's nowhere on your planet I could hide forever." An hour later, they walked together through the forest toward the meeting place. David had insisted on coming with her, even though Zara warned him it was dangerous. "I need to see this," he said. "I need to know what happens to you. Promise me you'll stay hidden in the trees," Zara begged. "If they see you, if they realize I've been with a human this whole time, I promise. But I'm not leaving you to face this alone." When they reached the edge of the clearing, David hid behind a cluster of pine trees while Zara walked out to stand beneath the old oak. The 3 ships descended silently, landing in the meadow without making even the slightest sound. They touched the ground as gently as soap bubbles. Doors opened in the sides of each ship, but they didn't swing out like normal doors. Instead, sections of the ships simply became transparent and then disappeared entirely, like holes opening in reality itself. 3 figures emerged from the ships, and David's breath caught in his throat. They looked similar to Zara, but were clearly different. Their skin was pure white, with a blue tint, so pale it was barely visible. Their hair was not silver like Zara's, but white as fresh snow. And their eyes didn't glow with warm light like hers did. They were cold and bright like stars. They were also much taller than Zara. They moved with perfect coordination, like dancers who had practiced the same routine for years. Everything about them seemed calculated and emotionless. The tallest of the 3 approached Zara and began speaking in a language that sounded like wind chimes mixed with whispers. David couldn't understand the words, but he could hear the tone, cold, formal, and suspicious. Zara responded in the same language, and David noticed that, as she spoke, her own appearance began to change. Her skin became paler, more like her visitors. Her posture became stiffer, more formal. She was trying to fit in with them again, but David could see how much effort it cost her. The conversation continued for several minutes, with the 3 visitors circling around Zara like they were examining her. One of them held up a device that looked like a crystal flower, and it glowed when pointed at Zara. All 3 visitors looked shocked at whatever the device told them. The questioning became more intense. David could hear the accusation in their voices, even though he couldn't understand the words. Zara's responses became shorter, more defensive. Her skin markings, which she had been trying to suppress, began flashing white with stress. Then the tallest visitor did something that made David's blood run cold. He pointed the crystal device at the forest, sweeping it slowly across the trees. When it pointed in David's direction, it glowed bright red. The visitor said something sharp to Zara, and she responded with what sounded like desperate explanations. But it was too late. They knew there was a human nearby, and they knew Zara had been hiding it. David made a decision that surprised even himself. He stepped out from behind the trees and walked into the clearing. All three visitors turned to stare at him, and David felt like he was looking at living statues. Their expressions didn't change at all, but the air around them became so cold that frost began forming on the grass at their feet. "Don't hurt her," David said, his voice stronger than he felt. "Whatever you think she did wrong, it was my fault too." The tallest visitor looked back and forth between David and Zara, then said something in their language. Zara responded, and David could hear pain in her voice. "What are they saying?" David asked. "They're saying I'm contaminated," Zara answered, tears now flowing freely down her face. "They can see that my biology has changed, that I've adapted to your world's temperature. They think exposure to humans has corrupted me." The second visitor spoke, and Zara's face went pale. "What now? They say they can't take me home, that my changes make me incompatible with our world's environment. But they also can't leave me here because I know too many secrets about our technology and locations." David felt panic rising in his chest. "What does that mean?" Before Zara could answer, something unexpected happened. She straightened up, and when she spoke to her people again, her voice was clear and strong. The purple markings on her skin began glowing brighter than David had ever seen them. The three visitors looked shocked at whatever she was saying. They began talking rapidly among themselves, gesturing at Zara and at David. Their perfect coordination broke down as they seemed to be arguing. Finally, the tallest one approached Zara and spoke directly to her. His tone was different now, not warm, not as cold as before, almost curious. Zara turned to David with tears still in her eyes. But now there was hope there too. "I told them something they'd never heard before," she said. "I told them that I don't want to be fixed or changed back. I told them that what happened to me isn't contamination, it's growth. It's becoming more than what I was." "What did they say?" "They said that's impossible, that no one from our species has ever chosen to change voluntarily. But they also said they're curious about what I've learned here, about what made me willing to change so much." The conversation continued, with Zara sometimes translating for David. Slowly, a solution began to emerge. The visitors couldn't take Zara home, but they also couldn't just abandon her. That could do with something unprecedented in their culture's history. "They're offering me a position as a liaison," Zara explained excitedly. "Someone who stays here and reports back about your people and your world. I would be the first of my kind to live permanently on another planet, and they're okay with that. They're not happy about it, but they're practical. They admit that someone who has adapted to your world would be valuable for future contact and research. And since I can't go home anyway..." The tallest visitor approached David directly and spoke in careful, accented English. "You are the human who helped her?" he asked. "Yes," David said, trying not to show how nervous he was. "She says you showed her kindness when she was vulnerable. This is unexpected from your species." "We're not all bad," David said. The visitor studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps not. She will remain here, but there will be conditions, rules to follow, secrets to keep." David nodded eagerly. "Whatever you need. She will need to send regular reports, maintain contact with us, and prepare for eventual official contact between our peoples." "I can do that." 6 months later, David woke up every morning to find Zara at her desk by the window, working on reports that she transmitted to her people using a small crystal device they had left behind. Her skin had settled into a permanent temperature that was somewhere between human warm and her original cold, and her markings now showed colors that her people had never seen before, new emotions that didn't exist in their vocabulary. She still sought David's warmth, but now it was emotional warmth as much as physical. They had built a life together that was unlike anything either of their species had ever experienced. She was Earth's first unofficial ambassador to the stars, and he was her anchor to humanity.